I'm Corbett Wall with DVAuction, here with your feeder flash for Wednesday, December the 20th, brought to you in part by the Night Latch Group. That's Andy and Codell Cunningham there in western Oklahoma. They can help you out with your ag risk of any kind, specializing particularly in the LGM policies. That's your gross margin policies there, where they can show you how you can hedge the risk on your corn and your cattle, on feeding cattle, and your LRPs, whatever you're looking for, guys. But for more information on the Night Latch Group, go to nightlatch.net. Gene King, the Bull King, 92 of Elwood, Kansas. And I hate to make the feeder flash into a obituary, and I know a lot of you guys don't want to hear this kind of stuff, but it seems like my friends are dying like flies all of a sudden, and Gene King was a big one. Gene King was a very, very dear friend of mine for many years. He grew up there in Elwood, Kansas there. He's a legend around the St. Joe Stockyards, which no longer exist, but will in our memories forever. But Gene King was a saint in my mind, and a very dear friend. He carried a cut and bull order there at St. Joe Stockyards for decades, but in a room full of producers, farmer feeders, order buyers, Gene was a trader. He was a trader at heart, guys, and after my own heart. I'll tell you what, a trader is very important in any kind of a market because they will buy anything at a price. And they have to know the value of everything. And that's the way Gene was. Gene went to war at a young age there. He was in the service during the Korean War days. When he got back home to Elwood, Kansas, he started a TV repair business back in the days when people would fix those things rather than throw them in the trash and go to Walmart and buy a new one. But Gene started finding himself over at the St. Joe Stockyards, first in the hog yards, and then later he started moving over into the cattle yards. And Gene found that there was more value in trading livestock than there was in fixing TVs, and so he began to support his family by that means. But he was there forever. And in the early days, after the Kansas City Stockyards demise, and a lot of the smaller auction yards around there started getting the cattle, Gene would go out to those sale barns around there and buy cattle and put loads together and then bring them back into the St. Joe Stockyards and trade them into there. He knew the value of livestock. He was a good cattleman. He was a price buyer, and that's what I kind of took to. He would buy the cheap ones. And even though he might have been guilty of buying some cattle with no value, many of which I took possession of, and we always kidded him about that, but he knew that there was value in everything. His commission firm at St. Joe Stockyards there for many years was Barry Bowes and Dwayne Penny commission firm, and he would sell his cattle through them. And I remember particularly one time he bought a calf that most of us all agreed was a liability. Had a short life expectancy, but Barry Bowes gave him a hard time after he bought this particular calf and said, "Gene, that calf's going to die." And Gene said, "Oh, no." He said, "I went by the pens on the way out of the yards and he was eating." And the next morning, Barry said, sure enough, that calf was laying on the bricks dead as a doornail with hay coming out of both sides of his mouth. But that's the kind of cattle that Gene dealt in. But I'll give you another incident there. That he bought a calf for me that weighed in the twos somewhere one time. He gave 15 cents a pound for this calf back in 2013 when cattle were starting to bring a lot of money. He got this calf bought for 15 cents a pound, and I chewed him out over it. I said, "Gene, I get tired of dragging those things off, my God." And he said, "Oh, he'll be all right, he'll be all right." And you know, and I had to keep the calf over to himself all the time because the other ones would push him around, and pretty soon that calf babying along with TLC there, he got a little bit better and a little bit better, and then pretty soon I could turn him out with some other ones, and he would go out and graze and come in and eat once in a while. And it wasn't a few months later that I was able to bring that calf in with a few cousins that I had on hand there, and that calf weighed close to 500 pounds and bring over $2 a pound. That's $1,000 on that calf. So Gene had his licks too there, and he always kept a handful of cheaters around his place there, but was always active in the market there. And he was just a gem to be around. He and I did a lot of business together. We drank enough beer together to float several battleships and probably a few aircraft carriers. We used to hang out or I hung out with him every Wednesday for about 18 years after the St. Joe Stockyards, and we would rehash the sale. We would talk about college and pro football, and we just had a ball. And a very dear friend of mine, I loved him. He loved his family. He loved to trade cattle. He loved football. He loved to play pitch. He loved his friends. He would do anything for his friends to help them out, and did many, many times. There's many instances that Gene would help his friends out however he could, whether it was monetarily or whatever it was. But Gene King is a saint in my mind, and he had an impact on many, many people that came through the St. Joe Stockyards. He outlived his two sons, Tim and Terry, there. He was survived by several grandchildren, a daughter, and his wife Carol, a sweet, sweet woman there. But I hate to bore you guys that aren't interested in that stuff, but I tell you what, the least that I can do is feature Gene King on the feeder flash, especially on a slow cattle market news day. Cattle on feed estimates come back for this coming report that's coming up on Friday here, right before the holiday, and it's a half day, but the report won't come out till 2 o'clock Central Time. But your inventory estimates for December the 1st are coming in at 102.2% of a year ago. You know, they keep saying we got a lot of cattle on feed. The change speeds have been very, very slow. It's backed cattle up quite a bit. It's hard to believe, as tight as numbers are, that we have over 2% more cattle on feed than we did a year ago, but I wouldn't doubt it. Placements for November come in at 96.2. The range in guesses from the analysts that go into that range from 94.4 to 98.3. We know we got less cattle around. We had a much smaller calf crop, but we've had a lot more imports of cattle coming from up from Mexico, down from Canada, and so it's probably going to range in there somewhere. Marketings for November were dismal. I mean, they just pulled these kills back to nothing, and it's resulted in extremely heavy carcasses, the heaviest we've had on record any time in history, and they're coming in at 93.2% of a year ago. So be sure to stay tuned to that cattle on feed report that comes out on Friday. 102.2% inventory, 96.2% on placements, 93.2% on marketings was the average of the analyst guess. Talk about your board on Tuesday. December live cattle futures down 37 cents at 168.45. February down 85 cents at 168.77. Your back months were unchanged to down as much as 82 cents. January feeder cattle down 127 at 221.90. March was down 95 cents at 223.20. Back months on your feeder cattle down 75 to up 65 cents on your farthest out month, which is November of 24. Talk about your grains. March corn down 4 1/4 cents a bushel at 472 3/4. January beans down 14 1/2 at 1312 1/2. Kansas City hard red winter wheat for March up 13 3/4 cents at 641 1/2. Fat cattle trade, nothing really taking place yet. Your packers are trying to refuse the fact that, that the market's higher, but they did give on the high side of last week's range for just 300 cattle in Iowa at 169. Didn't have any trade at all in Nebraska, Kansas, and Texas, and we can't see what's going on in Colorado because there's not enough going on out there to report. But we did have our biggest fat cattle auction in the nation, Yankton, South Dakota, Stockman's Livestock Market. They had 2,300 head of fats come in overnight and 3,400 head for the total. The conventional cattle, just the straight up fat cattle, were steady to a buck higher from 165 to 173 and a quarter. Program cattle, the non-implanted or drug-free cattle, and mostly higher in quality, sold $1 to $2 higher from 171 and a half to 179 and a quarter. And then the packers were generous enough to give 169 in the country in Iowa there. They did have one big bunch returning to feed that Gary Marks that gives us this information and allows me to share it with you. He's a retired fat cattle buyer. Great guy there. Wish him a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. But he told me about a big bunch returning to feed. 82 steers weighed 1293 at 181.75. Box beef cutout values were a little bit lower, but not bad on Tuesday. Choice cuts on Tuesday afternoon down a dime at 288.83. Selects down 56 cents at 263.16. Your slaughter running about par, 249,000 through the first 2 days of the week. That's 4,000 than last week's big week, 4,000 less, and 26,000 more than the same week a year ago. But there was a storm that come through a year ago, so that kind of threw that off. Talk about what else is going on. Legend Bank is available for fast and efficient cattle financing. Greg Brooks and Ricky Taylor there are your top cattle lenders in North Texas, but they can help you anywhere in Texas and anywhere in Oklahoma. They understand the business, they understand the trials and tribulations that you're going through, and they can work with you guys. For more information about Legend Bank, go to legend.bank. Talk about your cattle market. Feeder cattle market, your real-time index on DVAuction based on an 800-pound cash auction steer up through your middle 12 states. 7-day moving average there. Late on Tuesday was sitting at 221.73, up 15 cents. So just a smidge better there. Cattle markets or your sale barns are really winding down here. With all of them that are having a sale, it'll be their last sale till after the new year, pretty much all of them. CME Cash Feeder Cattle Index, latest available was 219.91. Got a couple big replacement sales, guys. If you're looking for replacement stock, we got big cow sales here today on Wednesday. Joplin Regional Stockyard starting at 4:30 in the afternoon. Going to have over 2,000 head of replacement stock after their way up sale that they have in the morning. But all kinds of bred cows and pairs. Going to have several nice bunches of fancy replacement heifers. And then Bassett Livestock Auction starts in the morning here today on Wednesday. 3,500 head of replacement stock for their sale. Several big complete dispersals. About 5 big dispersals of several hundred head or more each. And then they've got over 1,100 head of big fancy replacement heifers. They'll have Black Angus, they'll have F1 Black Baldies, they've got Red Angus. Both of those sales, Joplin Regional Stockyards and Bassett Livestock Auctions replacement cow specials are going to be on DVAuction.com. You can view and bid right there. Talk about your big sales on Tuesday. Not really a big sale here leading into the holidays, but typically a big sale. Ozarks Regional Stockyard in West Plains, Missouri had 1,150 head through the ring. Another 427 head through their in-house video they do with help from DVAuction. And the next sale, they're going to be closed for the holidays. Next sale back will be January the 2nd. That January the 2nd feeder sale will include a pre-vac special. But the higher undertone they called on the cattle didn't have a really good test in any one class of cattle, but my friend there that does the markets that I used to work with pretty closely there, he put in the receipts for the year there at Ozarks Regional Stockyard, and I thought they were pretty respectable. 144,300 head through the ring at Ozarks Regional Stockyard, another 36,000 through their in-house video that we help with here at DVAuction, and we're proud to do business with Randy Hoover there and company on DVAuction there in West Plains, Missouri. Going to give you several individual quotes from all around. How about Fredonia Livestock Auction in Fredonia, Kansas? My buddy Brad Hahn there. He sells 102 steers, weighed 941, bring 210.50. North Platte Stockyards in North Platte, Nebraska sells 63 little steer calves, weighed 462 at 352.5. How about a market I'm not sure we've ever talked about? Jamestown, North Dakota Livestock Auction sells 69 steers, weigh 524 at 311. Thought that was pretty impressive, way up north there. Imperial Auction Market in Imperial, Nebraska sells 56 steers, weighed 860 at 234. But the most impressive quote that I saw anywhere on Tuesday, your Macrocin, no BS, top quote for the day, come out of Rezac Livestock Commission in St. Mary's, Kansas. It was 62 big steers, weighed 907 at 223. And that's your feeder flash for Wednesday.